Welcome back to the latest episode of TT Plays, and joining me again, I don't know how I got him to come back, is Tamer Trent. And Trent, we've got a pretty exciting topic to talk about here. We're talking about these brand new heroes for Alchemical Revolution. But first, how you doing?
Oh, I'm great. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Now, before we dive into this, I do think it's official. We're both going to Ascent, Ontario on February 10th. Is that true?
It is true. I just bought my ticket, so I'm very excited. I haven't looked up flights yet, but I'll be there.
And we also have confirmed that it is Ontario, California, not Ontario, Canada. So not a Providence. It is a set of country. And I think we're also both planning on going to the Vegas Nationals on May 10th.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. I wasn't able to buy the super pricey ticket, but that's okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to going. I'm looking to have forward to seeing all the people I saw at St. Houston, maybe some new people in Ontario. So be sure to check out those things. Tickets for both those are available on Eventbrite. Again, Ascent Ontario, February 10th, and Vegas, May 10th. But let's jump on into this. We recently had Ascent Down Under, and they gave us some really spicy spoilers in the form of new heroes. And these heroes have a very specific change that the heroes come bolted onto an element, which I was not expecting. Were you, Trent?
No, not at all. I was very surprised when I saw that.
Yeah, I actually had to go read the rules. I'm like, does this actually give me the second element? Like, I think it does, and it sure does. And we have three heroes we're going to run through, and we have Polkhawk, my chubby, bombastic shot king. We have Vanitas, the most healy of all clerics, and we have Nico, please whip me harder. And I thought we'd start with Polkhawk first, the bombastic shot. We only know his level 2, which we know is fire. Mm-hmm. He's 22 health, range 2, and range is that weird thing. If he's at distance, he gets +2 attack, which is kind of hard to quantify, without knowing the rest of the cards. And then he has ranger reaction cards you activate, cost 1 less to activate. And again, comes bolted on with the fire element. So what do you think of Polkhawk? Polkhawk?
Polkhawk.
Yeah. I'm going to keep calling him Polkhawk.
Yeah, I think Polkhawk's fine.
Yeah.
The cost reduction is really interesting because I was looking through all the cards that exist right now, and the Ranger reaction cards that exist. It's Arrow Trap, and that's it from DOA. So I don't think that there's a lot of stuff in the past that's going to be able to be utilized with Polkhawk's new stuff, level 2. But I think they're probably going to have to print a ton of stuff in Fire, which is really good considering the automaton as well.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even have to be in fire, right? Because we could base element anywhere and then just kind of splash into fire and use all the fire looting to find this stuff. I do think that long-term cost reduction has a potential to scale really well, right? Like, we're only going to get more of these as the game keeps going. So I think he might be at his lowest value on release. But I think that's only going to continue to scale as he keeps going out there. So I'm pretty excited for him.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I was already thinking of something where if you use Rococo, you can drop her, hit them, and then attack, and then arrow trap her to bounce her back, which is kind of cool. I think that there's a lot of cool, interesting mechanics coming up that you can utilize these new champions with.
Yeah, and arrow trap's a really good card.
It is.
Yeah, we can't prep it that we know of. But it is a really cool card. Is there anything else you want to talk about Polkhawk here? I do think Vanitas gives us some interesting things. I'm going to make the assumption that all three of these have reverse lineage, basically. I think.
Yeah.
I and what that means basically is in order to get to Polkhawk level 2, you had to play Polkhawk level 1. Mm-hmm. So we can't bounce around a Rye and then come into him. I think we do have to kind of Polkhawk both of these things.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think it's kind of a good restriction in order to keep these champions to have their own unique identity, rather than what we saw with the lineage break champions in DOA, which was you can be on Rye and then switch over to Merlin and then be Merlin level 3, or you could start with Lorraine, for example, which seems like it's almost. You have access to your warrior cards as level 1, then you have access to your mage cards as level 2. Creative Shock does nothing as Lorraine, et cetera, et cetera. So I thought it was interesting, and I'm really excited that they're keeping it. Your level 1 goes into your level 2 in these lineage break champions, kind of.
Yeah, and I guess the other assumption that I'm making is these don't have level 3s right now. I'd be kind of shocked if they did, but again, time will tell. They might have level 3s out there. We might not be as excited for Tanaris as we thought we were. So is there anything else for Polkhawk? I think he's probably the most underwhelming outside of his art. And again, we really do need to see his level 1 to kind of fully evaluate him there.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think the only other thing that is worth mentioning is the Crimson tier along with Polkhawk is very good because you get to activate reaction cards for cheaper, and then they're starting to draw you cards. So
Mm.
I think that's going to be very one of the strategies to beat in ALC, but that's just a prediction. I don't know yet.
And that's one of the reasons I think we're both excited for Ascent Ontario is there'll
Yeah.
be all of these like because what it comes out a week before Ontario, I think there'll be all of these like ideas and testings that people basically test out at this giant event. So it'll be pretty cool. So all right, so next up we actually have the hero that we have both levels of, and that's Vanitas. We
Hmm.
have Obliviate Schemer and then Convergent Ruin. So Obliviate Schemer doesn't have a lot going on there, but basically it it has lineage on there. Oh, the reverse lineage. I don't know what
Reverse
to call
lineage.
that. Yeah. And then if there's a wind card underneath there, so basically if we're giving up the possibility of playing dual elements, we get to Glimpse 4. And Glimpsing 4 is, it's a
Pretty
lot of
huge.
value. Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. It's almost like a free idle thoughts, right? But like the idle thoughts that you wish it was, which was glimpse for.
Floating memory is not bad, right? We'll talk about that with
Yeah,
Nico.
that's true.
So my general thoughts here is that the level 1 is okay. It's not a powerhouse like some of the level 1s we've seen. The level 2, I think, is much spicier, right? We're jumping back up to the 22 hit points. We actually have lineage on there. We have when you activate a spell card, your next attack without a weapon gets +1. And you're like, okay, cool. Attack without a weapon's fine. On champion hit, if 7 or more damage was dealt, cards their opponent materialize cause 1 more to materialize until the beginning of your next turn. Sure. I I personally don't think that text will matter much, but we'll see. I think the really exciting part is the hero has 1 innate strength or power, excuse me, associated with them. So they don't need a weapon. They can just always swing for 1 base.
Yeah, and they can retaliate too, right? Because they have an attack. So like you can't attack them with woodland squirrels without losing the card.
Ken here, I didn't think champs could retaliate.
I think they can't because they don't have an attack innately, so they can't attach a weapon to it. But I'm not 100% on that. But I think that you can if you have an attack. I'm not sure though.
I'll double check while we keep talking about it. So
Yeah.
I think one of the ideas, obviously, is you run the Serene Wind so that you have the Glimpse 4 and you can immediately glimpse, right? You have the Glimpse 6 to start, you have the Glimpse there, then you can release that to recover. And
Hmm.
then the other one is obviously you just splash the secondary element into here. So what are you thinking there?
Yeah, I think that the Glimpse 6 is really good because the downside is when you lineage release it, you lose access to that element. So you'll see a lot of the decks that do run Serene Spirits now. They are usually more leaned into the advanced element rather than their main base element. They just use it for like 8 cards or so because they don't want to lose anything really when they lineage release. So having the ability to do that is going to make Vanitas kind of start with 28 health, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it'll be if you choose to. I know, like we led this with like you can play 2 elements, and now we're talking about look at how cool just playing 1 element is. You can be
Yeah.
such a hipster. Screw 2 elements, stick to this 1 element. I do think there's a lot of power there, like you said. That 28 hit points basically for playing a level 2, right? You're basically Kingslayer,
Yeah.
and you just have a ton of card filter going on there. And I think that's really valuable because Wind doesn't bring a lot of innate card draw either, right?
Yeah, true. Most of the times that Wind is drawing cards, it's always like attached to something like the Wind Rider Invoker or, some mage spell like Disorienting Winds, right? Which actually kind of works well with Vanitas.
Yeah, yeah, sure could. So okay, so what if we decide not to go mono Wind? What do you think about possibly going with another um, element kind of tacked on there?
That's interesting. I think it could be pretty cool. I think water has a lot of cheap mage spells like glacial guidance and things like that. And even warrior stuff, right? Like aqueous enchanting. Um, so like all those mage spells. I think it's a mage spell or mage warrior spell. I can't remember.
Which one?
But aqueous enchanting.
I don't remember.
Yeah. But like a lot of the cards like that like buff your allies, and then if they can buff him too, then you're swinging with extra damage. It might be good for like a low to the ground strategy. Um, I think it'll be really interesting anyway. I would lean more into a monocolored deck with him, but I'm not sure. I don't know. I think it could be interesting. Like I said, Glacial Guidance seems pretty sweet with him.
Glacial Guidance it's a warrior card, but the only thing you lose out is the float there, right? But I mean, just buffing your entire board with the one. And I think you're actually correct after rechecking the rules. It just says like units without a power stat or with a power stat of 0 or less can't retaliate. So I think you're right. I think the fact that he brings one means he is able to retaliate, I guess, if you don't want to swing him. So
Mm-hmm.
there's some
Oh,
interesting lines there.
one of the cool things with him is if you're in water, you can use Nia. So now you can like if you can get that up to 7 and hit their champion, then you have Nia. You just name their next champion level. You chilling touch them and then hit them for extra. Like you're going to be wrecking their memory the whole time. I think that's kind of cool. I like that because it works well with Mind Freeze as well, right? That's a mage spell.
Yeah, but Mind Freeze is based on level. Like, unless we're like
That's
getting
true.
level counters, like Mind Freeze is just like pay 5 to do 2 chilling touches. It's like that doesn't feel great,
Fair.
especially because it also doesn't have the float activated on it.
That's true. That's attached to class bonus. Yeah.
So getting a 7, I know people are kind of. It's not that hard. You basically just need to attack for 5, right? And the 5 plus the innate one on him plus the benefit if you're able to get the spell card theoretically, right, is getting you that 7.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, I say, and I get it's not super easy. I don't think that's going to come up too often, but when it does, it's going to hurt.
Oh, for sure. I mean,
It's
that's like hit him with a Gildas and then Glacial Guidance and then swing in, right? Or hit him with a Gildas, maybe like a Lunette and then Glacial Guidance and swing in. That's not bad. Doable.
but no, the Gildas doesn't count, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right.
It's got to be 7 from Vanny himself,
Oh, that's
themself.
tough.
I don't want to assume. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that is tough. I thought it was just on hit. If 7 damage was dealt, I guess it is from Vanitas, right?
it says on champion hit if 7 or more damage was dealt, cards that opponent materialize cost 1 more. So I read that as the on hit
Oh,
has to have done the
this
7 or more
attack.
damage.
Yeah. Yep. Brutal.
So yeah, I just don't think that text is going to be super relevant. I think we're really just taking this because we're going to attack for passive 1 or 2 a turn. We get that glimpse 4, and I think it's a pretty interesting deck there.
Yeah. Same.
All right, are we ready to talk about Nico?
Yeah.
So we have the Whiplash Allure, and if you couldn't figure it out, this is the water caster that we have here. 25 hit points for the level 2, so definitely a little bit thicker here. When a card with floating memory is banished from a graveyard, put a lash counter on Nico. On champion hit, you may have that opponent put X cards from their deck into their graveyard, where X is the number of lash counters on Nico. So a lot going on here. Important to note that the float you use to get to level 2 Nico, Nico does not see. So that float doesn't count. So you're kind of dealing with float after that fact. And it doesn't matter how that float is, so you can raccoon yourself if that's really what you want to do. But it does open up a mill strategy. I think lots of people are excited about her. Her art is obviously inspiring, to say nothing else.
Very good.
What do you think of Nico?
Oh, I think she's really cool. I have been wanting to play a mill strategy since DOA, so I'm really excited for her. I think that she combines well with a lot of the like mill yourself cards that we've been seeing since DOA even. So I think it's like very much in on flavor for water to like say mill me. Well, I'm going to mill you now.
Yeah, I'm a little worried if there's going to be enough time because like
Yeah,
you got to mill what like at least low 40s of cards. I'm going to assume, uh, which is a
yeah,
lot.
yeah. Oh, for sure. I think that that is just a secondary strategy, and it's probably only relevant against decks that are recovering a large amount of life.
Hmm.
Which there's very few decks in the game that do that at the moment. But I think that she'll be very strong into those decks because if like let's say you erendite and then banish 10 cards, or like that's too much. Like 5 cards, right, would be reasonable. That's still milling them for 5 cards every time she hits. So even if they're healing every turn, if you keep hitting them, they'll lose the game. So it like kind of adds an extra clock. That's
I think
like
the important thing in your demo though is like you're also just smacking them for 11.
Yeah,
So
true.
like, yeah, they are milling 5 cards, but you're also just taking 11 life from them. Like if they fast cure twice, they've still down 3. Like it's
That's true.
so like unless I mean time will tell. Like maybe there's a way to banish a whole bunch of cards more quickly. But like yeah, materializing Erendite and just swinging like you kind of have like a primary win con, and then
Yeah.
there's like a secondary thing going on here as well.
Yeah, I think the just the added damage. It's kind of like, hey, like I guess maybe the only downside to it is possibly that you're going to mill them floating memory, which is kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, unless you have some way to manipulate it that we don't know about, right? Like a Merlin, like baby Merlin effect or something like that. I can't think of anything innately that would be manipulating their stuff outside of just like raccooning it and being obnoxious. Yeah, I can't think of one. Can you?
No,
That would mess with your opponent's float.
not really, other than Merlin and Raccoon.
Yeah, I can't think of one. Um, yeah. So I
But
don't know. You
yeah,
the
I think she
the
seems
mill
really
has like
interesting.
so much potential, and I know there's a bunch of degenerates like you and me who love mill strategies. We're just archiving trap the crap out of people. I just don't know how. It's definitely going to be more viable than mill is right now because there is like a self mill and an opponent mill deck that exists right now. Whether we want to actually call them real decks or not, right? We're using Avalon, we might be using Cutthroats, we're doing like silly, cheeky things. There's a Nimue involved in there. It's not a good deck.
No.
But Nico theoretically can do it, and I don't know. I'm excited to see what people come up with. I do think like water deck builders already kind of like are kind of galaxy brains. They come up with like some really cool ideas. I'm excited what they come up for this mill strategy.
Yeah, me too. I think I like I said, I think it's really interesting, and especially because she has the water attached to her, so you can start on a different color.
Yeah, I mean, my brain immediately goes to is it if we're talking magic colors, right? I want fire to get stuff into that bin. I'm using water that brings all that great floating memory, and then we're just going to town. I think we can do some pretty obnoxious things there. Is that where your brain went as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the filtering that's allowed in fire, like if you can't level up to level 1 to get your watercolor yet, you can always just pitch it to Creative Shock or Hasty Messenger or any other thing.
So, what is the most expensive card to materialize? Do you know? Is it just one?
um, I mean, I guess the most expensive card would be a level 3 champion, but I think like as
Oh
far
no,
as like regalia,
it's the donkey.
oh yeah, that's true for 12.
Now we can't do that because of the elemental restriction, but like that would be amazing if we could just banish 12 floating memories, get 12 flash counters to play the Majesty. Um, yeah, I think you're right. I think it's just a champion and then just a bunch of zeros and ones.
Yeah, I think and even some of those ones have like the cost to materialize this as a class bonus is reduced by 1.
Yeah, and that's not what we want. I want this to cost as much as possible.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll do some more exploring there.
Oh, well, is you can also there's
Mhm.
got to be some stuff to like banish floating memory from your yard, like Frostworn Paladin with her gets an extra lash counter on her, plus you draw a card, so that's pretty strong. And then
Yeah.
there's that other one that banishes 2, right? It's the like double Frostworn Paladin in
Oh, in the new
Guardian.
set. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and again, it'll be interesting. It's just like if we're counting on having to mill, let's say low 40s of cards,
yeah,
what's like a realistic number of lash counters we're going to expect in the game? Like 4 to 7
4.
at the high end?
Yeah, I think so.
So we're just talking like that's just a lot of attacks that we end up going through, right? Like 6 to 8 attacks that all
Yeah,
hit.
that's true. I think you'd also like every time that you sink into oblivion them or something, it's like you hit them with an extra attack. If you're milling them with I guess like hindered fractal maybe or deep sea fractal that comes in hindered.
Oh, and that's another way to banish a float, right?
Ye-
Or the other
uh,
fractal.
yeah, the fractal of intrusion.
Yep.
So I think there's a possibility for getting a decent amount of counters on her, and I don't think you could depend on it as a primary strategy. But I'd be really surprised, and I'd love to be surprised.
Yeah, I mean the other thing is we're just gonna have to come up with like a wide. We just need a ton of attacks, right? Because she needs to
Yeah,
swing and hit early and often. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
yeah.
All right. So that's all three of the heroes we have. Again, we only have the level 1 for Vanitas. We don't have it for Polk, or we don't have it for Nico. We're assuming they'll have that reverse lineage stacked onto them. We're assuming they also have the elements that they come with. I think I'm most excited for Polk just because I love his art. I don't think he's going to be that powerful, but I'm ready to mess around with a bad Ranger deck at my local game nights.
Oh, for sure. No, he's amazing. The art on him is incredible.
Who are you most excited for?
um, Probably Nico, honestly. I
Yeah,
think I love the mill strategy, so I think it'll be really fun.
yeah. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of Nico stands out there.
For sure.
I think she should be pretty amazing. Do you think there's any chance they CSR these?
Oh, I hope so. I know we're supposed to get like 15, I think, in ALC or something like that. Is that? I think that's right.
We've only
So
seen we've seen 7.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
could
I don't
be.
know. I'm pretty excited.
All right, Trent. Well, thank you for joining me. To wrap up here, what are you excited about these dual elements? Is this something you saw coming? Like,
I actually
what's
didn't
your
think that they
initial
would.
take on them?
Yeah, I didn't think that they would do the dual elements for another couple sets. So it's interesting to see them, go into them so early. But I'm excited because I think that it's going to add a lot of deck diversity to the game, which allows for some of the less spear pointed strategies to be more viable. So I think it's overall good for the game because it'll add like a bunch of different brewing options and there's like I've been saying it for a while. I think there's got to be some like multicolor strategy. I was hoping Prismatic Sanctuary would help do it, but there's got to be some multicolored strategy out there that is absolutely broken. So
Yeah, and
I hope someone finds it.
I'm excited to see what people come up with there too. I think in general, the wider the game is, the better. I think if I was to play Devil's Advocate, I am looking at kind of like Alan, Mordred, and I'm like, y'all didn't age the best. I hope they give you a level 3 that like really knocks it out of the park there. So I'm hoping we don't forget the OGs there.
I feel the same way. I would love an Allen level 3. I think that'd be so cool.
All right, Trent. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Thanks for coming back on the pod. I guess it's not a podcast, it's a show. We'll have to have you back to talk more Tamer as ACLCS comes out. But again, let me know down in the comments what you're excited about, what hero you're excited about. If you saw the dual elements coming, what like crazy thing do you anticipate them coming out with in the future? And until next time, everyone, cheers and happy
Thanks again.